Good afternoon. My name's Dean Orrico. I'm the president at Middlefield Capital. And today we're joined by a special guest to help us better understand the sustainable food and agriculture sector. Now, I think many of us know the food and agriculture sector is this massive industry, and it's an industry that really has a number of challenges ahead of it. And a few of them really start with the growth in population around the world. Today, we're at about 8 billion people. We're going to about 10 billion people over the course of the next 20 or 30 years. And a lot of that is going to fall on the shoulders of the food and ag industry because they're going to be charged with producing more food, especially when you've got a growing middle class as well. And that growing middle class is going to be demanding more protein-based food. And together with that, we've got a lack of arable land. We're running out of fresh water. So there's an increasing focus to generate more food that is healthier and with a lesser impact on the environment. And we think one of the ways to achieve that is to look to the alternative protein, the alternative meat-based sector. Because at the end of the day, alternative proteins, alternative meats have a much lesser impact on the environment. They don't require as many resources. So as a result, they really do generate far, far lower greenhouse gas emissions. And with that, I'm really pleased to be joined today with a senior person from probably the best known brand and company in this space, Beyond Meat. So just to give you a bit of background on Beyond Meat, this was a company that was launched in 2009 by the co-founder and current CEO, Ethan Brown. 2012 started creating its own products and really made a huge leap a few years ago when it IPO'd at $25 a share relative to today. And today's a great day for the stock. It's at about $130 a share. So you can see how far the company has come. So I'm really pleased to be joined today with Lubi Kutua, who is the VP Financial Planning and Analysis, as well as Investor Relations. So Lubi, really great for you to join us today.
Great, thanks for having me, Dean.
So let's start with the product level at Beyond Meat with a particular focus on health, as well as talking a bit about taste and cost. We know generally that meat has been a great source of protein, iron, zinc. So tell us about how Beyond Meat is dealing with the health benefits from your products, and then try to weave in your R&D efforts and marketing efforts to incorporate taste and cost while still trying to make a very healthy product.
Yeah, thanks, Dean. That's a great question. So, Ethan always talks about our three key levers of long-term strategic growth, right? The first one is taste and sort of the sensory experience of consuming our products. The second is the nutritional profile of our products. And the third is cost, right? We think if we can significantly advance those three levers, that opens up a much, much bigger opportunity and more mainstream adoption of these type of products, our brand in particular, versus where we are today, which is kind of playing in this higher price niche sort of, status, right, as a category. So, as it relates specifically, to our products and the health attributes, look, I do think that there has been some misinformation out there, probably some of it perpetuated by the, incumbent meat industry, just as it relates to, these products being overly processed or, containing high levels of sodium, et cetera. And I can get into why we think that is misinformation. But, what we believe is that there is a growing body of scientific research that is supporting, the benefits to human health that are specifically, related to plant-based diets, right? And so, there's all sorts of benefits, right? Associated, like there's no cholesterol, In our products, for example, lower saturated fat relative to animal protein, no heme iron, for example, things like that. But you also mentioned sustainability, right, of these products being sort of a key long-term consideration, right, that we're going to have to face as a global society. But we have guardrails around our innovation process that are specifically tied to the health and nutrition aspect of our products, where we have strict guardrails against using things like GMOs or scientific, any type of bioengineered ingredients, etc. We're not doing that necessarily because we have, for instance, I think the jury is still out on GMO products, right? However, there is, certainly for consumers who care about nutrition and health and things, they are looking for products that they believe are more natural and free of those types of ingredients. And so, we have set our guardrails around that. But if you also look at initiatives that we've been involved in, for instance, with Stanford University School of Medicine, what we're doing there, and we recently announced an expanded study with them that'll take place over the course of 5 years with a larger population, et cetera. The idea behind that is really to develop a repository of scientific data with actual scientific information that we can point consumers towards. And this ties into the question about marketing, right? You'll see us be more vocal about that so that we are not just in a sense hand waving and saying, hey, our products are better for you, but actually able to support that with scientific data. And so you'll see a lot more from us from a marketing perspective on that front. But health and nutrition is definitely a very, for us, it's one of the core levers. We believe that, we need to be able to back up, what we are claiming are the health and nutrition benefits of these products. And then also get obviously you have to lead with taste. It has to be a product that consumers will enjoy. And then we get the cost right. And then we think that the opportunity is significantly larger.
Okay, it's interesting, and you touched just on the end there about the consumers. Just expand on that a little bit, Lubi, in terms of, we know that you've got an industry here that's changing, and I think Beyond Meat is really a disruptor in this industry. And with that, you're going to get pushback and controversy, and you alluded to some of that misinformation and that controversy. And we know there are devout meat eaters and companies that produce that traditional beef patty who are going to be pushing back. So talk a little bit about who Beyond Meat believes their target customer is and how you're going to be addressing that segment of the market.
Sure, it's a great question. And it's funny because we sometimes get the question, I sometimes get the question, why are you producing, a product that, very closely mimics animal protein? Like, why would a vegan or a vegetarian want something like that, right? And, the response is, we obviously love the support of all of our consumer base, but they're not the primary target consumer that we're going after. We want actual meat eaters, right? Number one, it's just a bigger market overall. But two, if we're going to make any difference, right, in this global challenge that we face and weaning the global population off of animal protein to some degree, we're not saying we're going to completely replace animal agriculture, but we definitely need to be less reliant on it. We're going to have to attract meat eaters, right? And so this goes back to the 3 levers that I discussed, because the way we think about it, and I don't mean to minimize the amount of effort that it's going to require to get these right, but essentially on the innovation front, we have to get the taste and sensory experience of consuming our products to be indistinguishable from animal protein. So when a consumer consumes our product, they should not feel as if they're making any sort of sacrifice from a taste and sensory experience relative to animal protein. Secondly is the nutrition, which we talked about earlier, right? Again, we want to be able to make it abundantly clear and support that with scientific fact, right, that these products are better for you than their animal protein equivalents. And then lastly is getting the cost right? So if we can get to a point where we're at price parity or price below animal protein, which we think is possible over the long term, right? Then you have to ask yourself the question, okay, for those meat eaters, for those people who are accustomed to eating animal protein today, if you have a product that tastes exactly like meat, right? It's indistinguishable, is better for you, and costs the same or less, then why would you not eat it, right? And so that's when we think that the story behind plant-based meat becomes really powerful and unlocks a much bigger opportunity.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I think you're right. If you can tick those relative boxes, you could really start to persuade people to try the product. And as I think you're alluding, you're trying to get them to embrace the product, but not exclusively. You can still have meat, but here's an alternative for you. And with respect to cost, I know the company's really been making some strides at, basically costing down the product. And a lot of that is relating to some of the efforts you're making on insourcing. Can you talk about that, Lubi, in terms of the advantages of doing that, and then what impact it's going to have on cost and over what time frame, so you can get closer to that traditional beef product or that traditional meat product?
Yeah, sure. So there are several levers that we believe we have to work with to get our unit cost of production significantly lower than where it is today, which we need to be able to do if we're going to achieve our goal of achieving price parity with animal protein. So when we think about our total cost of goods sold, right, our unit production costs, the two biggest drivers of cost is, our direct materials. So that's, we include everything from the ingredients that go into our products, as well as the packaging, right? So all of the direct materials. And then because we have this outsourced model where we do the sort of front end of the production, where we're building the sort of meat substrate, right? And then we send it off to co-manufacturing partners who are external third parties for the forming and packaging. We have to pay those co-manufacturing partners a tolling fee, right? So we pay them some fee based on the amount of finished good pounds that they produce for us. So the two of those buckets together, the direct materials and the tolling fees, are the vast majority of our total cost of goods sold. So for us to tackle, this issue of getting our costs down, we really need to address those two buckets. So you mentioned we recently acquired a former co-manufacturing partner of ours. The idea behind that, obviously, is to bring in some of that back-end production in-house, right? That allows us to, obviously, we eliminate the tolling fee that we would have been paying to that co-manufacturing partner. It provides for some other efficiencies. So for instance, right, because we have this, sort of disaggregated production process currently, right? What we're doing is we're producing this protein matrix at our facilities. That's really where the true IP is. And we would never outsource that portion of the production. And then, we put this stuff in these large totes, load them onto trucks, and then ship them to our co-manufacturing partners all over the country, and in some cases in other parts of the world, right? And then they need to process that protein matrix, form it into packaging, et cetera. But, just by the nature of that system, you have some logistics that are required in between where you have to transport product, right? By owning the back end production, we now have the ability, right, to bring all of that under one roof. So we could go all the way from extrusion, from creating the protein substrate to the finished good product, and eliminate all of that, those logistics costs in between. And so, there are other benefits besides just, the elimination of the tolling fees. But that is what we're starting to do now. I will note that the back end of the production does tend to be the more capital intensive portion of the business, which is why our production system was designed the way it is, right? It was designed in its current form to be capital efficient, but also to allow from fast scalability, right? So now that we've reached, certain thresholds of scale across different geographical markets, and also within certain markets where we believe, we may not necessarily have the scale, but we believe these are critical to our long-term strategy, like China, for instance, right? We are putting in place the capabilities now, investing some of that capital that's required on the back end to bring those activities in-house.
It's fascinating. And do you have a goal or a time frame by which you think you can really drive these costs down to become more competitive, as you say, with more traditional products?
Yeah. So what we've shared publicly is Ethan said that back around the time of our IPO, which was in mid 2019, he had set a 5-year target. So basically to the end of 2024, where in at least one of our product categories, we would achieve price parity or underprice the animal protein equivalent of that product. Now, we innovate under 3 core sort of umbrellas, right? That's beef, pork, and poultry. I would say, you'd probably be right to assume that we probably get there in terms of price parity first on our beef platform, because beef is the highest priced animal protein. And so the distance that we have to travel to close that gap is the smallest. So we maintain that sort of target. We still expect that by the end of 2024, in at least one of our product categories, we will achieve price parity or lower. And then as you start to look out into the rest of the portfolio, that's probably a little bit further out, but we don't see any structural barriers for why we couldn't eventually get the cost profile down with it across the categories.
And more generic question, the evolution and the advances in the company are so significant and happening at such a rapid rate. As you look back over the last couple of years, and maybe even a little further, what do you think are the biggest lessons learned by the company, whether it's with respect to the cost side or the consumer, or how to market the products? What would you think would be the key factors there?
That's a really good question. And I think there's so many lessons that we've learned, even just in the last, 2.5 years of being a public company, that, we have to be able to innovate quickly and out innovate our competitors. This is a very competitive space. It's attracting a lot of attention, even from some of the large, food industry players or protein companies globally. And, many of them have, substantial resources at their disposal. And so how are we going to win? It's by continuing to advance those 3 key levers that I talked about earlier. And I think, so far we've done a really good job in terms of the product, innovation. So making sure that, the quality of the product from a taste and sensory experience continues to kind of lead the category. The nutritional profile as well. And we're investing right behind initiatives like the Stanford study. We're leading the category there, I think, in driving the narrative around the health benefits of plant-based meat. And then, we have made some progress right on the cost front, over the last several years, and that's primarily been driven by scale. And then obviously it took a little bit of a turn in the wrong direction as we were dealing with the various challenges associated with the pandemic and what that did to our food service business in particular. But now we are obviously coming off of a pretty significant capital raise, the largest in our company's history. And so now we are kicking off a cost down program, utilizing the help of some globally recognized management consulting firms to really drive significant cost out of our process. And so, I think just the ability to continue to innovate quickly, to stay, that one step ahead of our competitors as much as we can, be able to commercialize quickly. This is, one of the core challenges that we face today. I would probably say is one of the biggest learnings. And then marketing for sure, right? You can't, it's one thing to have a great product, but if the consumer isn't aware of it, right, then you're almost dead in the water. And so we are we're ramping up our marketing efforts, and you'll see us be just a lot more vocal on all aspects, right? So we'll speak to the taste and sort of sensory aspects. We'll also speak to the nutritional benefits, and we'll be able to back that up eventually with some of this data that comes out of the Stanford study.
Well, that's excellent. I'm certainly looking forward to the 4.0, the 5.0, the 6.0, because I know the evolution and the continuing innovation within this company is going to continue. So thank you very much for your time today, Lubi. It's been very insightful, and best of luck. We're a shareholder, and we're really excited to see where the company's going forward. Thanks.
Sure. Thanks. Thanks again for having me, Dean. And definitely happy to be able to speak to, obviously it's a very important topic and global problem that we're trying to solve.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.